Hey, this is Don from Stillkruzn. We're here to do another installment of our video blog. Today we're going to be covering this pretty cool gauge cluster that Josh is putting together for a 65 F100. You may remember a few months ago that we did a 3-wire GM alternator install on it. He's also put a new wiring harness in it from Rebel Wire. He's also using the gauge wiring harness in this from Rebel Wire, along with some cool LEDs from Super Bright LEDs. So we're going to go over that. We're going to cover some of the tools that are needed to install it, put it together, the parts list, the stuff he's bought, and a couple other things. So we'll be right back and we'll get this thing covered. Here we have the 1967 series gauges from New Vintage USA. They're a really cool, classic looking gauge. You can see he's got the temperature gauge here. It came with the kit came with the sending unit for it. He's got the voltage gauge, oil pressure, which also came with the sending unit, and he's got the fuel level. It does not come with the fuel level sending unit. That's going to be specific to your vehicle. Some gauges, some companies have a variable ohm gauge. This one is not, so he had to make sure you had the correct sending unit for it. The speedometer is mechanical, so it's got to have the correct gear in the transmission for the speedo cable and everything. If you use electronic, you have to have the speed sensor, and you can calibrate it yourself. The speedometer has a really classic look. One thing I like about them, it doesn't have all the brand names or some of the other stuff. The bottom of the speedometer says miles per hour. That's exactly what you need to know. I think they're a really cool looking gauge, and I think they're really gonna look nice. Next, we're gonna cover the parts list. All right, now let's cover some of the wiring harness. I will say consult the instructions from Rebel Wire and New Vintage USA. They cover wiring these gauges up pretty well in their instructions. As you can see, here we have the brown wire that is the power for the light for each gauge. This stud would be for the sending unit for the gauge. The power is on this side, and the center is the ground. With the exception of the voltage gauge, this side is the ground, and this one is the power for the voltage gauge. Josh has done an awesome job tidying all the wires up. He's used a lot of zip ties, different sizes, heat shrink to cover up any open bare wire. We're going to cover this one up here in just a few minutes. He's also, the kit comes with the body block so that you can remove the gauge cluster if you need to for any reason. Makes it a little easier. Kit also comes with the female spade connectors and the eyelets. One great thing about the Rebel wiring harnesses, you've got the plug here on the gauge cluster wiring harness. You've also got the block that goes to the body harness. These little ends that come on this strip, they get crimped onto the wires, and then this end of the wire snaps into the plug here. Once you get them all wired up, the plugs are indexed. If you can see here, these two are squared off, and on the center one on this side, so this will only plug together one way, and just plug it together to plug your gauges in. If for some reason you need to move the gauge cluster to do some work underneath the dash, you just unplug it, unbolt your gauge cluster from the dash and pull it out. Makes it working underneath the dash really easy. A few of the tools that you're going to need to accomplish this little project, you're going to need some wire cutters, crimpers to put the ends on the wires, electrical tape, some nylon cable clamps just to tidy up the wiring. You will need some Teflon tape to put the sending unit in for the water temperature gauge, but don't use it on your oil pressure sending unit. You'll also need a heat gun to heat up the heat shrink to seal up any openings in the wire or exposed wire. Safety glasses, some people use them. Josh, he just throws them away, whatever. But anyway, let's show you the heat gun and sealing up one of these exposed wires. Remember, the heat gun does put out heat, so be careful as you're using it. And there, using the heat shrink like that and getting a good seal on there just prevent from any moisture getting in there and corroding the wires. In the event you'd have a leaking windshield and get any moisture behind your dash. And after that, just plug it back on. All right, here you can see the back side of the gauge cluster. It's all wired up. They use the gauges are perimeter lit with a standard 194 bulb. But Josh has opted to upgrade to a 360 degree 100 lumen versus about 10 lumen on the 194, but this is an LED, and they just snap into the little holders and go in just like the 194 bulbs would, just like that. All right, quick recap on the some of the parts here that's in this. The gauge bezel here is a reproduction 1965-66 custom cab F100 from Dennis Carpenter. The gauges are New Vintage USA 1967 series. The wiring harness is all Rebel wire. And then the piece of aluminum in here that the gauges are sitting in, that piece is going to be personal preference. To use whatever you want. There's multiple things you can buy online. You could have machine shop mill it for you, or if you're capable of doing, by all means, do it yourself. Now let's take a quick look at the gauges lit up. We've left one stock 194 bulb in. All the rest will be the LEDs. After we take a look at that, we'll also take a look at all LEDs. All right, there you see it. As you can tell, we've got the stock 194 bulb down in the fuel level gauge. And the rest of them all have the super bright LEDs. Now let's take a look at it with it all lit up with LEDs. And there it is with all 5 super bright LED lights in it and lit up. Looks pretty cool. That's going to about wrap up this vlog for today. If you have any questions, leave them for us down in the comments. We're going to put links to Rebel Wire and Dennis Carpenter, New Vintage USA, all of those in the description below. If you need any wiring needs for your car, we highly recommend Rebel Wire. Their customer service is great, and they can help you out. We've got one more thing from Rebel that we're going to install on the truck as a fan relay, and we're going to try and cover it in the next vlog. We've got some other ideas that we're working on, but if there's something you'd like for us to cover, leave it in the comments also below, and we'll see what we can do about that. Also, the link to Stillkruzn will be down there in the description, so go check us out, like us on Facebook or Twitter, and we'll be back out in this spring at the car shows and covering those. And that's about it, so stay safe out there.